That night at Stamford Bridge, there were no cameras in the tunnel. But 4 people saw it happen. A stranger handed N'Golo Kanté a photograph. And the world champion froze, completely still for 12 seconds, staring at that piece of paper, tears forming in his eyes, while nobody understood why. This is what happened. May 2019. Chelsea vs Watford. Final home match of the season. Stamford Bridge was alive with noise. 50,000 fans singing, drums pounding, the air electric with anticipation. In 7 minutes the teams would walk onto the pitch. The usual pre-match energy filled the stadium. But in the player tunnel, something impossible was about to occur. N'Golo Kanté walked alone through the concrete corridor beneath the stands. Full Chelsea kit. Number 7 on his back. Captain's armband wrapped around his left arm, a responsibility he'd accepted quietly, without ceremony, the way he did everything. His boots clicked against the polished floor. Echo. 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 The sound of a man walking toward battle, the way he had hundreds of times before. He was calm. Focused. Breathing steady. Running through tactical patterns in his mind. Watford's formation. Their counterattack triggers. Where he needed to be. When he needed to press. Kanté didn't do pre-match nerves. He did preparation. The tunnel curved left ahead of him. Harsh fluorescent lights overhead. Concrete walls painted institutional beige. Exposed pipes running along the ceiling. The smell of liniment and fresh grass drifting in from the pitch entrance. He turned the corner. And stopped. A man stood in the middle of the tunnel. 60s. Weathered face. Dark jacket over a worn shirt. Jeans that had seen better years. Civilian clothes in a space where only players, staff, and security belong. Kanté's first instinct was concern, not anger. Someone lost. Someone who needed help. Sir? Kanté's voice was soft, the gentle politeness that had become his trademark. Are you looking for someone? The man didn't move. He stood perfectly still, hands at his sides, staring at Kanté with an expression that mixed hope and fear and something deeper. Something that looked like grief. N'Golo, the man said. Not Kanté. Not Mr. Kanté. Just the first name, spoken with familiarity that made no sense. Kanté tilted his head slightly, confused. Do we know each other? The man reached into his jacket pocket. Slowly. Carefully. He pulled out something small, a photograph, old and worn at the edges, the kind that had been carried and touched so many times the surface had gone soft. He extended it toward Kanté with a trembling hand. I need you to see this, the man said, his voice breaking. Please. Just look. Kanté stepped forward. Not cautious. Not suspicious. Just present. The way he always was. He took the photograph. And the world stopped. Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The photograph showed 2 boys. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. Standing on a dirt football pitch in what looked like rural Africa. Homemade goalposts fashioned from wooden posts and rope. The boys wore mismatched clothing, one in a too large shirt, the other shirtless. Both were smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, a deflated football at their bare feet. One of the boys was clearly N'Golo Kanté. Younger. Thinner. But unmistakable. Those same kind eyes, that same gentle smile. The other boy. Kanté's hand began to shake. His mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. His eyes filled with tears. 12 seconds of absolute silence. Kanté stood frozen in that tunnel, staring at the photograph, while his mind traveled back across 3 decades to a place he'd locked away with all the other memories too painful to carry. Behind Kanté, footsteps. A security guard had rounded the corner, radio in hand, ready to escort the civilian out. He saw Kanté's face and stopped mid-stride. Something in the player's expression made the guard understand immediately. Do not interrupt this. The man who'd given Kanté the photograph was crying now, openly, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You don't remember me," he said. "I didn't think you would. It's been 30 years. But I had to find you. I had to show you this." Kanté looked up from the photograph. His voice came out as barely a whisper. "Who are you?" "My name is André Toure," the man said. "I'm that boy's uncle. The other boy in the picture. His name was Michel." Was. Past tense. Kanté's jaw clenched. His fingers tightened on the photograph. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened in 1991. N'Golo Kanté wasn't always N'Golo Kanté, World Cup winner and Premier League champion. In 1991, he was an 8-year-old boy living in a small village outside Paris, the son of Malian immigrants who'd come to France looking for work and dignity, and a chance to give their children better lives. His father had died when N'Golo was 11. But in 1991, when this photograph was taken, his father was still alive, still working brutal hours in construction, still coming home exhausted and making time to kick a ball with his youngest son. That summer, N'Golo's family had returned to Mali for 2 months to visit relatives. To reconnect with the place they'd left behind. To let the children understand where they came from. In the village where his mother's family lived, N'Golo met Michel Toure. Michel was his second cousin. The nephew of one of his mother's brothers. Same age as N'Golo. Same love of football. But while N'Golo would return to France, to school, to opportunity, Michel would stay in that village where water came from wells and electricity was sporadic and football meant playing barefoot on dirt with whatever could be kicked. For 8 weeks, they were inseparable. Every morning, Michel would come to the small house where N'Golo's family was staying. They'd grab the half-deflated football, the only ball in the village, and run to the makeshift pitch behind the school. They'd play for hours. Just the two of them, sometimes. Other days, they'd gather enough kids for a proper match. N'Golo had already shown signs of what he'd become. Even at 8, he read the game differently than other children. He anticipated. He intercepted. He was always in the right place at the right time without anyone teaching him how. But Michel had something else. Pure joy. Uncomplicated love of the game. He played like football was air and he was breathing for the first time. "When I grow up," Michel would say, lying in the grass after hours of playing, both boys covered in dust and sweat. "I want to play in France. Like you? I want to see the stadiums. I want to play on grass so green it doesn't seem real." "You will," N'Golo promised. "I know you will." They'd made a pact, the way 8-year-old boys do. Written in the dirt with a stick. Sealed with spit and handshakes. "When we're older, we'll play together. On the same team. In a real stadium." N'Golo's uncle, André's brother, had taken that photograph on the last day before N'Golo's family returned to France. The two boys, arms around each other, that deflated football at their feet, smiling like nothing could ever break what they'd built that summer. N'Golo left Mali promising to write. Promising to stay in touch. Promising they'd see each other again. He was 8 years old. He meant every word. But life happened. His father died 3 years later. His mother worked 3 jobs. N'Golo focused on school and football and survival. Letters became infrequent. Then stopped. The connection faded the way childhood connections do when distance and circumstance intervene. N'Golo never forgot Michel. But he tucked that memory away with all the other things from before his father died. The painful pieces of a life that felt like someone else's. He didn't know that in 1997, 6 years after that photograph was taken, Michel Toure had died. Malaria. Simple, preventable, treatable malaria. In a village where the nearest clinic was 15 kilometers away and medicine was expensive and 14-year-old boys who spiked fevers were told to rest and drink water and wait it out. Michel had waited. And the fever hadn't broken. He'd died in his sleep, his uncle André holding his hand, While somewhere in France a 13-year-old N'Golo Kanté was playing youth football and dreaming of professional careers, completely unaware that his childhood friend was gone. Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. The Stamford Bridge tunnel. May 2019. Michel Toure standing in front of N'Golo Kanté, watching the world champion process information that rewrote his past. Michel died? Kanté's voice was hollow. When? 1997. He was 14. Kanté closed his eyes. His hand covered his mouth. His shoulders trembled. The security guard, still frozen 20 feet away, spoke quietly into his radio. "We need a minute here. Give us a minute." Someone on the other end started to protest. The guard cut them off. "I said we need a minute." André stepped closer to Kanté. "He talked about you constantly. For 6 years. My cousin N'Golo. The boy from France. We're going to play together someday." He never stopped believing it. Even when he got sick. Even at the end. Kanté's tears fell onto the photograph he still held. "I tried to find you," André continued, his voice shaking. "After he died. I tried to get a message to your family in France. But I didn't have addresses. Didn't have phone numbers. I didn't know how to reach across that distance. And then years passed. Life went on. And I thought you'd forgotten him." "I never forgot," Kanté whispered. "I know that now," André said. "Because I've watched you. For years. Since you started playing professionally, I've followed your career. Every match I could find on television. Every highlight. Every interview. And I saw something." He pointed at the captain's armband on Kanté's left arm. "You play like he did. Not with skill, you have more talent than Michel ever dreamed of. But with joy. With that pure love of the game. You don't play for glory. You don't play for yourself. You play because it's who you are. That's how Michel played. That's what he taught you that summer." Kanté looked down at the armband. At the photograph. At this man who'd traveled from Mali to London carrying a 30-year-old picture and a grief that had never quite healed. From the pitch entrance, voices. The teams were lining up. 3 minutes to kick off. The tunnel would fill with players and officials any second. Kanté made a decision. He carefully folded the photograph and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jersey. Against his chest. Over his heart. Then he removed his captain's armband. André's eyes widened. "What are you?" "This was supposed to be his," Kanté said simply. He held the armband out to André. "Michel should have had the chance to wear this. To play in a real stadium. To feel that grass under his feet. He can't. But you can carry this for him." "I can't take that," André said, his voice breaking. "You need it for the match." "I don't need it," Kanté interrupted gently. "I know who I'm playing for now." He pressed the armband into André's hands. Then he did something that would be talked about by the 4 witnesses for the rest of their lives. He pulled André into an embrace. 2 men. One a world champion footballer. One a village uncle who traveled 5,000 kilometers carrying an old photograph and unfinished grief. Holding each other in a concrete tunnel beneath a stadium while 50,000 people above them chanted and sang, completely unaware of what was happening below. "Thank you," Kanté whispered. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for showing me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there." "You were 8 years old," André said through tears. "There was nothing you could have done. But I can do something now." Kanté pulled back. Wiped his eyes. Took a deep breath. And then he did what N'Golo Kanté always does. He showed up. Kanté walked onto that pitch without his captain's armband. Teammates noticed. Coaching staff noticed. But nobody asked? Not yet. The match began. N'Golo Kanté played the match of his life. 7 interceptions. 12 kilometers covered. He was everywhere, not for himself, not for the cameras, but for an 8-year-old boy who never got to run on grass this green. In the 67th minute, Kanté won the ball in midfield, advanced 12 yards, and threaded a perfect pass that became a goal. As his teammates celebrated, Kanté looked up toward the executive boxes where André sat, still holding the captain's armband, still crying. Kanté touched his chest. Over his heart. Where the photograph rested. The cameras didn't catch it. The commentators didn't mention it. But André saw. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. After the match, Kanté gave André his match-worn jersey. The one with the photograph still tucked inside the pocket. Keep this with Michel's picture, Kanté said. And know that every time I play, I'm keeping that promise we made. We're playing together. We always were. The photograph now sits in a frame in André's home in Mali, next to Kanté's jersey. He tells Michel's story to everyone who visits. About the boy who loved football. And the boy who never forgot. Kanté still doesn't wear his captain's armband the same way. Those who know him say something changed that night. He plays for more than himself now. He always did. But now he knows why.